Hello, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Madison, and I am excited to share my educational leadership action research project titled Empathy Explorers: Integrating Empathy and Character Education into a Science-Based Curriculum. Over the next several minutes, I'll walk you through the purpose of my study, the methods I used, the data I collected, and the conclusions and implications for future practice. I hope these findings spark meaningful conversations about how we can support students' social emotional development while strengthening academic engagement. To begin the study began with the real need that I saw during science and just lessons in general, especially hands-on or collaborative activities. I noticed students struggling with communication, patience, and perspective taking. These challenges often led to conflict, off-task behavior, disengagement. So I wanted to explore whether intentionally embedding empathy routines such as structured partner talk, reflective prompts, and collaborative roles could improve student interactions. The purpose of this study was to understand whether empathy focused instruction could strengthen engagement and collaboration in a meaningful and measurable way. The problem guiding this study was that students demonstrated inconsistent empathy behaviors during lessons in general. This inconsistency created barriers to effective collaboration and reduced overall engagement, especially during building thinking classrooms. Students often became frustrated with peers, had difficulty sharing their materials, or struggled to listen to one another. These issues impacted not only the quality of their learning, but also the classroom climate. Addressing this problem was essential for supporting both academic success and social emotional growth. This study is significant because it bridges social emotional learning with academic instruction. Research shows that SEL practices improve engagement, behavior, and academic outcomes. But teachers often struggle to integrate SEL into content areas in a meaningful way. By embedding empathy routines directly into science instruction, I hoped to support whole child learning while also improving the quality of peer interactions. The findings have implications not only for science instruction, but for any classroom where collaboration is essential. My research was guided by three key questions. First, how does integrating empathy based science instruction or empathy routines influence student engagement? How does it affect collaboration and peer interactions in the classroom climate in whole? And how can we integrate technology into empathic education? These questions help me stay focused on the specific outcomes I wanted to measure and ensured that the study remained aligned with the needs of the classroom, not only my classroom, but classrooms in general. The rationale for the study was grounded in the need for SEL instruction and science instruction that engages students not only cognitively, but emotionally. Social emotional learning is essential for whole child development, and empathy has been shown to strengthen collaboration, communication, and problem solving. This project directly aligns with Manatee County's school district's vision, which emphasizes inclusive, supportive learning environments that promote student well-being and responsible citizenship. By integrating empathy into science, I aimed to create learning experiences that were meaningful, relevant, and connected to real-world issues. Students participated in a series of activities designed to blend science content with empathy building experiences. These included using Merge Cube, augmented reality exploration, endangered animal projects, and environmental STEM challenges rooted in conservation, empathy journals, and VR experiences through Nearpod. These activities provided rich opportunities for students to practice empathy while engaging deeply with the science content, effectively integrating the two. This project used an action research design, which allowed me to study instructional practices in my own classroom while implementing a targeted intervention. The study took place in a second grade classroom in a Title I school in Manatee County School District, with a total of 16 students participating. Because the intervention was integrated into core instruction, all students in the class participated, making this a whole group sample. Over 80% of the class identified as Hispanic or Latino. 25% identified as Hispanic, as Haitian, and 5% identified as Arabic. The total sample population receives free reduced lunch and is identified as low income according to the district records. The project was implemented over a 2-week instructional cycle. Data collection included both qualitative and quantitative measures, pre and post empathy surveys, observation checklists documenting student behaviors, student work samples from the adoption kits and the STEM challenges, teacher reflection notes done by me, and student interviews or discussion responses. These multiple data sources allowed for triangulation and a more complete understanding of how students responded to the empathy infused or empathy based science instruction. To collect the data, I used several instruments. Pre and post surveys measured student attitudes toward empathy and collaboration. Observation tallies captured specific behaviors during lessons, such as supportive language sharing and off task behavior. Participation metrics tracked engagement levels. Teacher surveys done by me provided insight into changes in classroom climate, and student work samples offered evidence of how students applied empathy during collaborative tasks. Using multiple tools allowed me to triangulate my findings and strengthen the validity of the study. I analyzed the data using a combination of coding, comparison, and triangulation. Qualitative data included teacher reflection, observation notes, which were coded for reoccurring patterns related to empathy, engagement, and collaboration. Quantitative data were organized into spreadsheets and visualized through charts to identify trends. Triangulating across multiple data sources helped ensure that the findings were consistent and credible. This process allowed me to see not just what changed, but how those changes emerged over time. This chart shows the pre and post survey results for all 16 students. The second chart shows that the average pre-survey score was 17.125 and the average post-survey score increased to 19.68. This represents a 2.56-point increase overall. Nearly every student showed growth, which suggests that the empathy routines had a meaningful impact on students' attitudes and behaviors related to collaboration and empathy. The visual makes it clear that the intervention produced consistent positive change across the class. This is an example of pre and post surveys for a student. This is a chart identifying the themes that were coded. 3 major themes emerged from the qualitative data. First, students demonstrated increased empathy behaviors, such as supportive language and showing patience with peers. Second, engagement improved. Students were more attentive and more willing to participate in science activities and activities in general. The third theme was that collaboration strengthened with students sharing materials and ideas more effectively. These themes were consistent across my teacher reflection notes, my observation notes, and student work samples. This visual shows growth over the 4 weeks that the students achieved after the empathy-infused science lesson was taught. This data shows that the increase in the level of engagement of students that were participating throughout the day in all subjects. This data, again, was taken from sheets from myself, observation data. This graph here represents, again, continued teacher observation data and tallies that show those coded themes and how they changed over the course of those 3 to 4 weeks. These examples illustrate the behavioral shifts observed during the intervention. The teacher, myself, noted that the students were talking more to each other with more patience. Observation notes also documented smoother group interactions and fewer conflicts. Students even referenced helping their partners in their written reflections. These examples provide, powerful evidence of the impact of empathy-focused instruction, and helped really bring that data to life. Here are student examples of their empathy-based projects, and it shows collaboration and what they participated in. In conclusion, the data clearly shows that integrating empathy routines into science instruction positively influenced student engagement, collaboration, and classroom climate. The research questions were answered with strong evidence from both the quantitative and qualitative sources. The findings support the idea that SEL practices can be embedded into academic instruction in meaningful ways and in effective ways, and that doing so benefits both the students, the teachers, and the overall classroom climate. These findings have several important implications. First, they reinforce the idea that social emotional learning supports academic learning. Second, they show that empathy routines can easily be embedded into daily instruction without taking away from academic content. And third, they highlight the need for teachers to have access to structured SEL tools and strategies that support collaboration and communication. These implications can guide future instructional planning and professional development. The data did raise additional new questions that could guide future research. For example, how sustainable are these gains over time with just, a couple lessons? How might empathy focused instruction influence academic achievement beyond engagement? And what supports do teachers need to consistently implement these routines across all subjects? These questions point to opportunities for continued study and improvement and highlight the importance for ongoing reflection. Based on the findings, I develop an improvement plan that includes embedding a short empathy routine into a daily science instruction, providing teachers with a strategy guide on how to implement empathy-based programs, increasing opportunities for collaborative science tasks, and continuing to collect data to monitor long-term changes. These steps will help sustain the gains observed during this study and support ongoing improvement in both academic and socially emotional outcomes in the classroom. This project helped me identify a area of professional growth and a new goal to continue developing my expertise in integrating SEL practices and integrating technology into academic instruction. I plan to deepen my understanding of how empathy and collaboration support student learning, and to share these practices with my colleagues through professional development and collaborative planning. This goal aligns with my long-term commitment to whole child education, instructional leadership, and human flourishing. I plan to disseminate these findings by presenting them first to my grade level team, and then I'm going to share my visuals with my school leadership, provide a summary of our overall findings to our families, and offer a strategy guide to help teachers implement this in their classrooms. My goal is to support broader implementation and encourage a school-wide focus on empathy-infused instruction. Sharing these findings will help build a collective capacity and promote consistent SEL practices across classrooms. Before closing, I want to reference the appendix, which includes all of my charts and supplemental materials used throughout this presentation. Figure 1 showed student empathy survey results, and it was in a bar chart. Figure 2 showed student survey average results in a line chart. Figure 3 was a pre and post survey example. Figure 4 was a qualitative coding table that showed the themes that were coded. Figure 5 was the teacher observations of engagement in the classroom line chart. Figure 6 were the teacher observations of the coded themes in a bar chart. Figure 7 was student sample work, and figure 8 was a student reflection writing piece that they chose to give after the lesson was over. These visuals are included here for easy reference and for everyone who would like to review the data more closely after this presentation. These are the research sources that informed my study and supported the conclusions. They provide additional context and evidence for the importance of integrating SEL into academic instruction. Thank you for taking the time to learn about my action research project. I appreciate your interest and I welcome any questions and discussion you may have. I look forward to continuing this work and supporting our students' academic and social emotional growth by integrating it into instruction. Thank you again for your time.